do the breaking news sounder. Yeah, this is big. I think you'll agree. You know the news is coming. It's huge, isn't it?
I mean, it's going to change the way we talk about football in the state of Carolina.
That's very good.
Thank you.
It is pronounced Xavier Leggett, not Leggett, or not Leggett. It's Leggett.
According to Xavier himself.
Again, according to him. So that's the breaking news. Let's get the name right. Leggett.
The breaking news might be Roger Goodell was right, which is unusual.
Well, I mean, if you're Roger Goodell and you're announcing these guys' names,
you probably double check.
You have to do it. Chuck Caton, former voice of the Hurricanes, 39 years Whalers Hurricanes, always went to the player. Seriously, he said this. I always go to the player. How do you pronounce your name? So, a few years ago, we were at Hurricanes Media Day. I went to Martin Necas because they pronounce Necas' name like 11 different ways. So,
say it fast so no one notices.
No, it's pretty simple. It's Necas.
Yep.
How do you pronounce your name, Marty? Necas. I like the Wade Minter, the PA guy, Necas. If you talk to the head coach, like now they're just calling him Netchie because that's his nickname. But Nekash, Nakash, what are we doing?
I had a teammate in college who he was in my recruiting class, and our senior year, he told us that everybody had been mispronouncing his name for the previous 3.5 years. It took him 3.5 years to feel comfortable going like, that's not how you say my last name. And he was one of those guys who like his last name was his name in the locker room, and it was wrong for 3.5 years. So some people just don't care, I guess.
There's a former PGA Tour player who lives in town. Mm-hmm. I'm friends with. His name is Brad Fritsch.
Okay.
For 5 years, I've been calling him Brad Frisch. It's Fritsch. Mm-hmm. Frisch to me. He pronounces it Fritsch. And we did a show. It was it was some anniversary show for me. Whatever. I've been here for a long time. And so he was a guest, and it was a roast. So he said for the last 5 years. He was in studio. He's like, by the way, it's Fritsch.
That's hilarious.
That was how we started the conversation. So every time I refer to Brad to my wife, she says, it's Fritsch, right?
Mm-hmm. Now you gotta change it up even more so. Call him like Freshie or something like that.
It's a total...
You gotta double down.
It is a total joke. So yeah, Leggett. That was the
Xavier
breaking news.
Leggett.
All right, how did you react to, because I said yesterday, if the Panthers trade into the first round, it's a sign that the owner can't keep his hands off things. I think this is a little different. How did you look at it?
Similarly, if you told me before that they traded in the first round, I would have expected they gave up much more and moved much further than one pick. The way I'm kind of describing it is I don't love the player. I don't mind the execution of how they acquired him.
Right.
If you're going to get a wide receiver, trading into the end of the first is huge. We're seeing the wide receiver market explode, right? With Amon-Ra St. Brown's new deal, A.J. Brown's new deal, you're going to expect CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. Like the wide receiver market is darn near quarterback-like.
Sure.
So for years, we saw people trade into the bottom of the first round for a quarterback to get that fifth-year option and kind of rent control for one more year.
Uh-huh.
Seeing it with wide receivers
Baltimore did it with
Lamar Jackson, exactly. Right. Seeing it with wide receivers makes sense now that wide receivers are also $30+ million a year at the top of the market.
You know what doesn't work, though? If you wait until all 5 years are up to then sign the contract, which is what Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson, which is what Jerry Jones does with everybody. And I hope if the Panthers recognize that Leggett, sorry, I almost screwed it up, that Leggett is their guy and a stud worth paying whatever he's going to get. If he's one of those top wide receivers, I would hope they would do it after year 3.
Yep.
Right? And not after year
Well, you do it after year 3.
5.
Exactly, because you have those 2 years of rent control.
Right.
So it's,
it drops the number.
It drops the average annual value.
So I would hope they would do it then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I have great faith, not only in them, but in any organization to do it properly.
And also the other side of Leggett is he's a raw talent guy, right?
Yes.
He's a late bloomer in college. He's physically gifted as far as being big, tall, strong, fast, all those things. You're going to have to, as you said, if you want to make that decision after year 3 to extend him, he has to look extend worthy within the first 3 years. It can't take you 4 years or 5 like it did at South Carolina for him to figure out, how to have massive success in this league. So it's a bit of a flex pick from Dave Canales saying, I'm going to take this ball of clay of tangibles and teach him savvy and nuance to be good in the NFL quick enough for us to take advantage of having the 5th-year option.
Here's the other bit of strategy I think the Panthers punted on by doing what they did. I'm not an expert. I have no clue. I don't know, is there that big a difference between Leggett and Ladd McConkey? Or A.D. Mitchell.
Yep.
Right? Is there that big a difference where you couldn't have just said, well, you let Buffalo maybe alerted the Panthers to the fact that people were calling about, well, there's only one wide receiver that can be picked at 32. So the other two guys, now maybe they had Leggett way ahead of them. Maybe there was a Walmart-sized gap in between.
And parking lot.
Right.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't know what their board looked like, but there couldn't have been that big a difference between those, Leggett and McConkey or Mitchell, to the point where, even though I'm not giving up a lot, how about the possibility that at 33, you get so many calls overnight that you can go from 33 to like 40-something and pick up a high 4th or another pick in the late 3rd round? Because I look at it, they need bodies, good bodies, and there is depth over the next 2 or 3 rounds in this draft.
Well, that's kind of why I said I don't like the player they picked, but I like the execution of it, because the 5th-year option makes sense. But you're right. He wouldn't have been the receiver I would pick out of this group, and for the simple fact that he only has 1 year of elite production. But if you look at like right now all the best available lists, 3 of the top 5 or 6 are wide receivers.
Right.
So that's usually not when you trade up for a wide receiver, when you look right at the best available and there's a bunch of wide receivers. You trade up for, Jerzon Newton maybe, who's the defensive lineman, there's him, then a bunch of wide receivers, a bunch of corners, a bunch of off-ball linebackers
Safeties.
Before you get to the next best available player at his position. You kind of want to trade into the last of a tier. It seems like we're in the middle of a tier of wide receivers, and they traded up that one pick. What it is conviction by Canales and Morgan. If they have that Walmart-sized gap between wide receivers, even if we don't see it, they are 100% convinced that it's there, and they're acting on it. So it's like, you're sticking to your guns a little bit here and saying we know how to evaluate football players, and this guy is way better, which I like that they're doing. But now you have to answer for if it's the right decision or not.
Tim Donnelly is with us. He does the afternoon show after me. He kicks me out of the studio here on 99.
It's a passing of the baton.
Yeah, absolutely. We never drop the baton.
No, absolutely not.
Clean exchanges at all
Olympics are
times.
coming
Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than other days. The next pick for them, let's say they stay at 39. I think with the cornerbacks that are on, that's what they need.
Yep.
Like they just did pick up the 5th-year option. It says of standout cornerback J.C. Horn. I think he could be great. I don't think we've seen anything that says he will be, because he can't stay on the field. I don't care how good you are. If you're not on the field, most of availability.
What is it? Best ability is availability.
And he's been barely available. The standout, I joked, he's standing out on the sideline watching everybody else play. But they need another corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could get a second, something that resembles an elite cornerback, now your defense has a chance to be really good if you can cover. That's where I would go with the next pick.
I would be A-okay with that if it's one of the 3 guys. Again, if you look at the talent evaluators, Cooper DeJean, would not be surprised if someone's trading up to 33 to grab him. Kool-Aid McKinstry has been mocked a little bit to 39 to the Panthers in the last 12 hours. And there's one more from Missouri, a guy who I was actually
Ennis Rakestraw.
Yep, there you go. I was looking at his film earlier today. Seems like he's got some goods. If it's one of those 3 guys, I think you used to turn in the cards. I always say like you run.
They don't turn in cards anymore.
Well, you just call it in because a lot.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, I want somebody like skipping up there to show how happy they are. If it's one of those 3, you skip to turn in the metaphorical card. If not, again, then you start looking at Powers Johnson, the center. You start looking at a few other guys, maybe somebody like Newton if he falls. And I don't know if the three wide receivers are still there. Maybe you just go, let's get Bryce Young, a 4 wide receiver group that we love.
Have you played around with the ESPN mock draft simulator?
I have not.
Oh, I've done so many, it's not even funny. I've done 3 today.
Yeah, I was going to say I like to do them by hand occasionally. So which one?
So I did. I had
Who
Kool-Aid.
are you ending up with? Okay,
I had Kool-Aid at number 39 twice. I've done it 3 times. And Cooper DeJean at number 39. He was still there. I don't think he's going to be there.
If he is, though, you skip that card up there and you put it in.
I don't think he's going to be there. And then after that, Twice I went right back to a wide receiver. And once I went to the defensive tackle from Texas, T'Vondre Sweat, who had the DWI, but we know
was a Big 12 Player of the Year.
Huge talent. So.
If you look at what the other young quarterbacks are getting, Caleb Williams got Rome Odunze in addition to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Jaden Daniels is reportedly actually the Washington and New England are both super involved in Debo and Brandon Ayuk. So they're looking to increase their young quarterbacks kind of arsenal. I have no problem if the Commanders want to make the first 2 days of the draft, let's make Bryce Young's job easier celebration day. So if Ladd McConkey's there, if Mitchell, who you brought up from Texas, is there, or Keon Coleman, even if they fall in love with him, although he's another big wide receiver, you might want to vary it up a little bit. I really like any of those guys.
Yeah, I do. I do too. And there's value later on in the draft. Hey, if they came out of the draft, the kid, Jalen, was it McWilliams?
From Oregon.
From Washington.
Not Washington.
Right? McMillan.
Played with Odunze.
And Polk.
Yep.
I think McMillan is the better of he and Polk, but
a little different. But
also a little bit rangier. Yep. If they could end up late, like 4th round, 5th round, something like that. I
think it's a 2 wide receiver minimum draft.
Absolutely.
If you want to snag them both in the first 39 picks,
also if you
more
want,
power to you.
We had Mike Felder on from at In the Bleachers on Twitter yesterday, and the other day I asked him best tight ends not named Brock Bowers, and there's an enormous talk about a gap.
Jatavian Sanders is my guy.
Okay, he gave me a couple of other guys that I guarantee will be around later that he loves as project tight ends.
Make the draft a celebration of putting more talent offensively around Bryce Young, and I am A-okay with it.
Yeah, the only defensive players I think the Panthers need to get out of this draft are at corner, and I'd like another defensive tackle to pair with Derek Brooks.
Ashawn Robinson is good as well there, but you can't have too many interior defensive tackles.
No, they plus, I mean, they
rotate him through.
Derek Brooks. Derek Brown. Yeah, look, me and names are not getting along.
If Derek Brooks is available.
I don't think I would draft him now.
It's not a position of need.
I don't think I would draft him now. Could you see him drafting Peyton Wilson?
I think Peyton Wilson is a guy who's plug and play on most defenses. He's really gosh darn good. I think the Panthers have needs elsewhere.
That is the only thing that it's not. I did mock him once.
Every interview Peyton Wilson works in that he idolizes Luke Kuechly. He's putting the back signal out like, come get me Carolina. Luke Kuechly's my guy, but I just think they have so many other needs. It's tough to go off ball linebacker.
And in some ways, that's why I wanted to stay at 30. Wanted them to stay at 33. To use that maybe as a chip to compile a couple more. Chip Patterson, I'll let you go on here. Chip Patterson, it was Darren Gann way out on earlier this week, said that he went back and looked and that there hasn't been a trade for a high day 2 pick that netted multiple day 2 picks.
Interesting.
So you would get
not even like a future day 2? Or for that draft?
For that draft.
Okay.
That draft. So,
that's funny because that was the assumption is at 33 you can double up on your day 2 picks and you
that's
end up
what he said.
with Tez Walker late 3rd. That's funny.
Who knows? Maybe the Vikings wanted no picks. In some ways, I don't like what the Vikings did in theory, but the way it came out, they got the quarterback they wanted. They moved up one spot, and they got maybe the best defensive player in the draft.
They played with fire a little bit by just kind of holding tight and not jumping up and giving a king's ransom for to go up and get J.J. McCarthy. But then once he falls down near them, I think they ended up looking pretty smart. A little lucky, but pretty smart.
Giants don't want a quarterback? I mean, maybe they believe Daniel Jones is serviceable.
That, or they think Daniel Jones is so awesomely not great that it's going to lead to high draft picks in the future. That could, that's the other way to get a quarterback is to tank naturally rather than trade up and get your guy.
And they've got an elite wide receiver next year when they plug a real quarterback in.
As we saw with Bryce Young, it's nice to have great wide receivers before you get the quarterback because it's really hard for the quarterback if you do it the other way.
That's one quick thing. I talked about this. Drake May is going to a very similar situation as Bryce Young was in.
I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, the real winner is whoever falls to Minnesota. Because you get Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So Drake May gets the bragging rights of, hey, I'm a top 3 pick, and then he gets the much taller challenge of, hey, you have to turn a whole bunch of 4s into playing like 7s and 8s, and you're the one that has to be the tide that raises all boats.
And they don't have a great offensive line. That's the thing. If they have a better offensive line, it would be better. But they don't. It's just okay.
They have Ramondre Stevenson. Check it down 100 times a game, and you'll probably lose by 2 scores, but your completion percentage will be high.
That'll be great.